Heading into this tournament, one specific rule shaped the entire bracket well before a single match was played. It borrowed a structure familiar from tennis, seeding the strongest teams so they couldn't meet too early. The 4 highest-ranked teams in the world were placed deliberately in separate quarters of the draw. That meant, mathematically, those 4 teams could only possibly meet each other in the semifinal round or later. FIFA's stated reasoning was straightforward: preserve competitive balance and avoid early, lopsided blowout matches. The 4 seeds themselves came directly from FIFA's own world ranking system, updated regularly using match results.
That ranking formula weighs recent results, opponent strength, and the importance of each specific competition.
It's not a perfect predictor of quality, but it's a reasonably transparent, publicly documented calculation. Critics have long argued the formula still lags behind a team's true current form by several months at times. It's a genuinely common practice across many major sports, not something invented specifically for this tournament. Tennis majors, basketball playoffs, and plenty of other events all use similar seeding logic for similar reasons. On paper, it's a fairly boring technical piece of tournament administration, rarely worth much attention at all. This time, though, it produced a result compelling enough that the rule itself became a story on its own. Keep that seeding rule in mind. What happened next made it look almost too convenient to be a coincidence. All 4 of those top-seeded teams needed to win their own group outright for the system to work as designed. Missing that mark, even by one group stage slip, would have scattered at least one seed into an earlier matchup. As the group stage played out, all 4 of them did exactly that, finishing top of their respective groups. From that point forward, the bracket's own geometry guaranteed those 4 could only meet in the final 4. Each of them then had to win 2 separate knockout rounds just to actually reach that guaranteed meeting point. All 4 did that too, surviving increasingly difficult opponents across the round of 32 and beyond. By the quarterfinal stage, all 4 of the tournament's top-ranked teams remained alive exactly as seeded.
That's a genuinely rare outcome. Seeding systems predict this kind of result far more often than they deliver it.
Injuries, upsets, and simple bad luck usually knock at least 1 or 2 top seeds out well before this stage.
Recent tournament cycles offer plenty of examples. A reigning champion eliminated early, a top seed stunned in the group stage.
Those upsets are part of why neutral fans generally love tournament football in the first place, seeds and all. A seeding system reduces the odds of an early shock, but it has never come close to eliminating them entirely. That history makes this specific tournament's clean outcome even more statistically unusual than it might first appear. This time, none of that happened. Every single top seed did precisely what the seeding system hoped they would. The semifinal round arrived with exactly the matchup the seeding rule had mathematically set up months earlier. Commentary around the tournament quickly noticed how neatly that outcome lined up with FIFA's own interests. A clean Final Four featuring the sport's most recognizable teams is, commercially, close to a broadcaster's dream. Bigger, more famous teams tend to draw larger global audiences, translating directly into higher advertising value. Broadcasters in each of the 4 countries involved could sell a home nation's semi-final appearance to local advertisers. That's 4 separate national audiences, each with a genuine high-stakes rooting interest in the same round. Multiply that across 4 countries, and the combined commercial value of this specific Final Four grows considerably.
One widely shared observation put it bluntly: this outcome couldn't have worked out better for FIFA or television.
That observation wasn't accusing anyone of rigging results. Matches themselves are still decided on the pitch. The seeding rule only shapes who can play whom and when. It doesn't touch what happens once a match starts. Nobody has presented real evidence that any individual match result was influenced beyond normal competition.
The more interesting question isn't whether results were manipulated, it's why the seeding worked out this cleanly. Part of the answer is simply mathematics. Seeding systems are specifically designed to protect the strongest teams.
If the underlying rankings are reasonably accurate, seeded teams should advance further than unseeded ones, on average. Statisticians who study tournament brackets generally agree seeding raises the odds of top teams meeting late. It doesn't raise those odds to certainty, though. Genuine coincidence still plays a real, measurable role. Separating the guaranteed part of a system from the lucky part of an outcome is exactly the point of this analysis. That's not a flaw in the system. It's close to the entire point of having a seeding system in the first place. The 4 teams involved also happen to be, by most independent assessments, genuinely among the tournament's best. Deep squads, proven coaching staffs, and strong recent form all pointed toward these specific teams going far anyway. A seeding system working as intended, applied to teams that were already extremely good, isn't much of a mystery. That's a less dramatic explanation than a conspiracy, but it's also the one best supported by the actual evidence. None of that fully erases the discomfort some fans feel watching a system align this neatly with commercial interests. Sports governing bodies do have direct financial incentives tied to which teams advance deep into a tournament.
That incentive existing is simply a fact about how modern sports business works, not evidence of active interference.
Reasonable people can hold both of those thoughts at once. The system likely worked honestly, and the optics are still awkward. It's worth remembering how this same seeding rule could have easily produced a far less commercially convenient outcome. If even one top seed had stumbled early, the entire storyline around this specific coincidence disappears completely. The system doesn't guarantee a commercially perfect result. It simply raises the odds of one if the seeds hold. This time, the seeds held completely across 4 separate teams and 5 separate rounds of knockout football.
That's genuinely rare enough to be worth discussing, even without assuming anything improper happened behind it.
Rare, statistically unlikely outcomes happen periodically in almost any large enough sporting system, given enough time. Tournaments run for decades. Eventually, a seeding system produces its cleanest possible version of itself by chance. This tournament, for whatever combination of quality and chance, happened to be the one where that occurred. It's a genuinely interesting structural story, independent of whether anyone finds it comforting or uncomfortable.
Seeding systems exist across nearly every major sport, and fans rarely think about them until a moment like this.
Most of the time, they simply do their quiet structural job without producing a headline of their own. This time, the job they did was clean enough and valuable enough to become a story in its own right. That's a useful reminder that tournament structure itself can shape a story just as much as any single match does.
Fans often focus entirely on goals, saves, and scorelines, while the surrounding structure quietly shapes the stakes. This specific tournament offered a clear example of that structure becoming genuinely visible, for once.
Whether that visibility changes how future tournaments design their own seeding rules remains an open question. Governing bodies do periodically revisit these rules, weighing competitive fairness against commercial considerations. A cleanly seeded Final Four, this commercially convenient, could reasonably factor into that ongoing internal debate, or it could simply be filed away as an unusually tidy coincidence. Both outcomes are plausible, and neither one requires assuming anything dishonest happened along the way. What's clear is that this specific Final Four gave broadcasters, sponsors, and casual fans exactly what they wanted. Whether that's a problem depends entirely on whether you think sport and commerce should stay cleanly separated.
That's a genuinely contested question, with reasonable, well-informed people landing on different sides of it.
This video won't settle that broader debate. It's simply laying out how this specific outcome actually came about.
A seeding rule, followed exactly as written, applied to 4 teams that were already genuinely excellent. That combination produced a Final Four that looked to some observers suspiciously perfect for FIFA's own interests. It's more accurately described as a system working exactly as designed, applied to an unusually strong set of teams. Sometimes the most convenient outcome for an organization is also, simply, the most statistically likely one. That's a less exciting headline than a conspiracy, but it's the explanation the actual evidence currently supports. None of that erases the legitimate conversation about incentives, optics, and how sport and money interact.
That conversation is worth having regardless of this specific tournament's particular outcome, honestly reached or not.
Structural questions about seeding, incentives, and commercial interest will outlast any single tournament cycle.
Other major sports have faced similar questions about whether their own seeding or scheduling favors bigger markets. None of those broader debates have produced a clean, universally accepted answer in football or elsewhere. This tournament's version of that question simply arrived with an unusually clean, headline-worthy example attached.
This tournament's version of that question just happened to arrive with an unusually clean, headline-worthy example.
4 top seeds, 4 group wins, 4 knockout runs, and 1 semifinal round that lined up exactly as designed.
That's the actual, verifiable shape of what happened, regardless of how anyone chooses to interpret it afterward.
Interpretation is where reasonable people will keep disagreeing, and that disagreement is a completely normal part of sports. That disagreement, healthy and ongoing, is arguably more interesting than any single settled verdict would be.
The bracket itself, though, is simply a matter of record, seeded, followed, and completed exactly as written. Whatever happens in the match is still remaining. That specific structural story is already fully told.
Sometimes the most interesting story in a tournament isn't a match at all. It's the shape of the bracket itself.